This is Hosea part 4, and we'll nowhere near finish what I got for tonight, so we'll just get started and see where it goes. We're Hosea 1, chapter 1, verse 10. Hosea 1, verse 10. Yet the number of the children of Israel shall be as the sand of the sea, which cannot be measured nor numbered. And it shall come to pass that in the place where it was said unto them, Ye are not my people, there it shall be said unto them, Ye are the sons of the living God. That's not Christians. I hear so many people try to replace that it just drives me crazy. Hosea is not written to Christians. Hosea is written to Jews. And the Jews will be one day again God's people. That's right. We are right now, but we're not really. We're in Jesus Christ, and Jesus Christ is the anointed of God. So we've got a special spot. He says, verse 10, Then shall the children of Judah, there's the people that weren't a people that are now going to be a people. They're of Judah. And the children of Israel be gathered together and appoint themselves one head, and they shall come up out of the land, for great shall be the day of Jezreel, Armageddon. And it will be. Okay, he says there's going to be one head. That is, somebody's going to be heading this up. Now, I know that Jesus Christ is going to be the head ruler. However, he tells us something in here. For the nation of Israel, they get a head too. Of course, Jesus Christ rules with a rod of iron in the millennium. However, he has little rulers under him. And David is going to rule for the nation of Israel. He's been picked by God. Let's find it in the Bible. Isaiah chapter 37. Isaiah 37. Is David alive in the book of Isaiah? No way.
Well, not on earth.
That's right. Isaiah 37, verse 35. For I will defend this city to save it for mine own sake. I like that. God gets excited from time to time. You can see it. He says, I'm doing this because I feel like it. For mine own sake. And for my servant David's sake. Okay, so he's got a special title, his servant. And he says, I'm doing something special for him. I'm going to save this city. Why is he saving it for David's sake? Because David's going to be ruling from there. Jeremiah chapter 30. Jeremiah 30, verse 9. Jeremiah 30, verse 9. But they shall serve the Lord their God, and here it is, David their king, whom I will raise up unto them. David's coming back, and he's going to be on the throne for Israel. Look at it in Ezekiel 34. Ezekiel 34, verse 23. And I will set up one shepherd over them, and he shall feed them, even my servant David. He shall feed them, and he shall be their shepherd. And I, the Lord, will be their God. And my servant David, a prince among them. I, the Lord, have spoken it. So in the millennium, David comes back as a prince. He'll take over as king in eternity. Let's see what else we got. Ezekiel 34, look at verse... we stopped at 24. Go to verse 25. And I will make them a covenant of peace, and I will cause the evil beast to cease out of the land. You know when this is, millennium. And they shall dwell safely in the wilderness and sleep in the woods. That is, you could go out and camp in the woods and not worry about the beast coming, you know, the bears coming and getting you, and the wild animals. And, you know, that's the scariest thing, to go out camping. At night, you know, a little bitty squirrel sounds like a big old grizzly bear. You hear a sparrow in the woods at night, and it just gets magnified in your mind. He says in the millennium, you won't have to worry about that. There's going to be no problems. You can sleep out in the woods all you want. Ezekiel 37. Ezekiel 37, verse 24. Ezekiel 37, 24. And David my servant shall be king over them. This is future. And they shall have one shepherd, and they shall also walk in my judgments and observe my statutes and do them. Well, that's never happened yet. It's going to. Verse 25. And they shall dwell in the land that I have given unto Jacob my servant, wherein your fathers have dwelt. And they shall dwell therein, even they and their children and their children's children forever. And my servant David shall be their prince forever. Hosea chapter 3. Hosea 3, look at verse 5. Afterward shall the children of Israel return and seek the Lord their God and David their king, and shall fear the Lord and his goodness in the latter days. Okay, there it is, millennium, David's coming back. That seems like a minor thing, but it's all through the Bible. And you know, most people don't even have a clue it's in there, but it's there, all through there. He says in our verse, in chapter 1 verse 11, he says that gathering together, that's going to be around a covenant that's made with both houses of Israel, the north and the south. And he's going to bring them together as one again. They'll not be divided. There's going to be no more division of the north and the south. It'll be America. I'll be back at one nation. No, not America. America's always had that same division, north and south. And it doesn't matter how long it's been since the war. We in the South, for sure, know there was a difference. And I think that's the very same thing that was going on in Israel. You know that the northern didn't like the southern, and the southern didn't like the northern. And it was the ecumenicals that got together in the two. And rarely did the two kings ever agree on anything, and they shouldn't have. And when they did, it was bad news. God says the only way to fix that is for me to come back. And he will. Ezekiel 37, look at verse 16. Ezekiel 37, 16. Ezekiel 37, 16. Moreover, thou son of man, take thee one stick, and write upon it for Judah and for the children of Israel, his companions. Judah is still part of Israel. They're a son of Israel, Jacob. Because he's going to go on and he's going to talk about the south. He's not saying Israel meaning the whole 12 tribes. Then take another stick and write upon it for Joseph and the stick of Ephraim and for all the house of Israel his companions. There's a division here. And we know what the division is, the north and the south. He says, take you two sticks, and we're going to represent something with these two. It's going to represent the nation of Israel in its divided state. And he's going to put those sticks back together and make them one stick. And that's something that only happens in the millennium. Now, right now, we don't know what we got over there. They don't even know what tribe they're in. Something's going to happen because we know the 144,000 are going to show up, and God's got them picked out of each tribe. I look for the Jews to start finding their tribes soon, if they're not already, and knowing what tribe they're from, because it's going to be that both sticks come together as one house, and the 144,000, of course, are identified as being from each tribe. Look at Hosea 8. Hosea 8 verse 10. God's not going to bring them back together until he's ready to do it. And when he does, he creates a new thing. Hosea 8 verse 10. For this is the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel after those days, saith the Lord. I will put my laws in their mind and write them in their hearts. And I will be to them a God, and they shall be to me a people. Whew. Now there's a benefit Christians don't get in this age. He says right there, they're not going to need to know where their Bible is and try to memorize Scripture. It's going to be written in their mind and in their heart. Don't you wish he had done that for us when we got saved? That's Hosea 8, verse 10. Oh, I told you wrong. Hebrews 8. Hebrews 8, verse 10. Yeah, long way away from Hosea. End of the day, y'all got to come read this stuff for me.
I know, I wasn't going to say anything.
No, speak up. I make all kinds of mistakes. Y'all just... Yeah, right. Y'all think I got some kind of modern version up here. This is the new covenant. Israel broke their... You're right. Israel broke their covenant of the Old Testament. So they've got to get a new covenant. They'll get a new covenant. But it's not going to be now. It's not now. It's not the church age. The church age is something separate from Israel. And they're going to get something special from God. It's going to be called a new covenant. We'll get into the full implications of that when we get to chapter 14. Okay, so the reign of Solomon was something special. Solomon was the son of David. And that was supposed to be in type a picture of Jesus Christ. He's called the son of David. But Solomon messed it all up. He's too human. He had wisdom direct from God. I mean, you'd think he had the mind of God almost. But he messed it all up. He relied too much on the flesh. And God's going to fix it all, and we're not going to need pictures anymore. We're not going to need types. You know, the problem with types in the Bible is they're tainted by human flesh. You never can push a type all the way because you find pretty soon it looks too much like you. It's got problems. He says they're going to multiply like the sand of the sea. Well, we couldn't say that Israelites have multiplied by like the sand of the sea right now. You can number them. But there's coming a day they will. That's got to be in eternity where they can live forever and ever. Look at 1 Kings. 1 Kings 4:25. Find out what was going on during Solomon's time. This will repeat. 1 Kings 4:25. And Judah and Israel dwelt safely, every man under his vine and under his fig tree, from Dan even to Beersheba, all the days of Solomon. So that's going to come back. Safety, we know that comes. And peace and tranquility. That's what Israel will receive again. And as a matter of fact, the world. Wouldn't that be nice? Everybody's wanting world peace. Well, hang on, it's coming. And if you don't qualify, you won't ever see it. Matthew chapter 9. Matthew 9, verse 27. It's very interesting to note the things that Jesus corrects about a person speaking or does not correct. If somebody's wrong, calls him the wrong thing, or says something wrong to him, he's not going to let it fly. If they're right, he doesn't correct them. He agrees with it and just goes on. Matthew 9:27. And when Jesus was departed thence, 2 blind men followed him, crying and saying, Thou son of David, have mercy on us. He's the son of David. He was, notice the definite article, thou son of David, the one. He's the one that is the son of David. Now they understood that to mean the Messiah, the one that was promised. And he was, and he is. Matthew chapter 12. Matthew 12, verse 23. This was no secret. The Israelites as a whole, the nation, recognized Jesus Christ as Messiah. Now, I'm sure, just like us, they had doubts. You know, well, he didn't come to my house and heal my mama. I don't know. You know, the devil's good at giving us doubts. But by and large, it was obvious. But this is what happens. God will give you truth. Then he'll test you. What are you going to do with it? When it gets hard, are you still going to believe it? Matthew 12:23. And all the people were amazed and said, Is not this the singular son of David? It is, it was, and it will be. Matthew chapter 15. Matthew 15, verse 21. I'm not going to give you all the verses on this because I just don't have time. But you'll find them. This is such an important thing. It pops up all through the Bible. Matthew 15:21. Then Jesus went thence and departed into the coast of Tyre and Sidon. And behold, a woman of Canaan came out of the same coast and cried unto him, saying, Have mercy on me, O Lord, thou son of David. My daughter is grievously vexed with the devil. Okay, they realized he was the Messiah. Beyond that, they realized he was the Son of God. He could do something about it. He could heal them. He could work miracles. That's what he was supposed to do. Matthew chapter 20. Matthew 20, verse 30. It's amazing to me how many of these people that recognize him as the Son of David were blind. You think they wouldn't know anything, but they knew. You see, God, you don't have to have eyes. He can meet you right where you are. Matthew 20, verse 30. And behold, two blind men sitting by the wayside, when they heard that Jesus passed by, cried out, saying, Have mercy on us, O Lord, thou Son of David. And the multitude rebuked them, because they should hold their peace. But they cried out the more, saying, Have mercy on us, O Lord, thou Son of David. You don't shut me up, I'll say it louder. They were used to yelling people down. They had to. If they were going to get any alms, any charity, they had to make their voice heard. And this was a good time to do it. They had found the Son of David, the Messiah. And they were letting it know. Now, he didn't stop and say, no, he's yet to come, I'm not him. You know, when John the Baptist was asked that question, he answered it directly, no, I'm not he.
Right.
And you wouldn't take that position either, at least if you had any sense. There's some today, they're claiming it. They're idiots. All right, Hosea chapter 2. We've finished the whole chapter. Hosea chapter 2. Hosea 2, verse 1. I'm glad he ended chapter 1 the way he did, because we ended on a high note. But now he's going to put us through the ringer again. Hosea is one of these books that as you read it, it's up and down and up. It's exciting and you think everything's happy and good times, and then he just pulls the carpet out from under you. Hosea 2, verse 1. Say ye unto your brethren, Am I? And to your sister, what is that? Rahuma. Yeah. Sounds like they moved to Africa or something. Rahuma. Verse 9. I'm sorry. Chapter 1, verse 9. Let's find out what these names are. Chapter 1, verse 9. And God called his name, Lo am I, for ye are not my people, and I will not be your God. Okay, you see that word, Lo am I. Drop the first two letters, and then in chapter 2, verse 1, you have it, Am I. Okay, he's changed the name, but he's calling them the same name. He's doing a play on words to say something here. The same thing with Rahuma. Look at Hosea 1, verse 6. And she conceived again, and bare a daughter, chapter 1, verse 6. Bare a daughter, and God said unto him, Call her name Lo-ruhamah, for I will no more have mercy. So forth, so on. Okay, so it seems like God disowned Israel. They're not my people, and I'm not going to have mercy. And in chapter 2, verse 1, he says, I'm reversing it. I'm going to drop the I'm not going to, and I'm going to call you those who found mercy in my people. Good stuff. So that's what Israel's end is going to be. And soon he's going to tell you it's not going to happen immediately. When we get to verse 2, the whole scene changes again. But in the meantime, Isaiah chapter 8. Isaiah chapter 8. I've given you the standard explanation for this. God's talking about Israel when they're rejoined to him and there's a new covenant. I'm going to tell you why I don't agree with that. In theory, it is correct. In the millennium, Israel will be his people again. And he will have mercy on them again. However, I don't believe that's what this means. And I'm contradicting everybody I've ever read to say that. So you can take it or not take it. You and God figure it out. But I'll tell you where I go with this. I say because the context of this chapter is not God accepting them. It's God rejecting them. So they're saying this or he's saying this to them as they're accepted among themselves, and they'll have mercy among themselves. Here it is, Isaiah chapter 8. Isaiah 8 verse 12. Say ye not a confederacy to all them whom this people shall say a confederacy. Neither fear ye their fear, nor be afraid. Sanctify the Lord of hosts himself, and let him be your fear, and let him be your dread. And he shall be for a sanctuary, but for a stone of stumbling, for a rock of offense to both houses of Israel, for a gin and for a snare to the inhabitants of Jerusalem. There he says something's going on here. There's a confederacy. Israel's getting together as though everything's hunky-dory, and it ain't. They've gotten them some contracts they're passing back and forth and acting like everything's just fine, but it's not. And I, the Lord, am going to come down there and be a stone of stumbling and a rock of offense to them. Now, I think that fits more with chapter 2 than saying it's millennium. Look at Psalm chapter 69. Psalm 69 verse 21. Let's find Israel when they get all together. You know, you get a bunch of people together, usually the right thing doesn't happen. The more people you have there, the more power to convince to do the wrong thing. And you've got a bad convincer on your side already, the flesh. Psalm 69 verse 21. Of course, this is a prophetic passage. They gave me also gall for my meat, and in my thirst they gave me vinegar to drink. Let their table become a snare before them, and that which should have been for their welfare, let it become a trap. That's exactly what he's saying in Hosea. They've all gotten together and they're saying everything's fine and we'll have mercy and peace and all this stuff. You know, peace, peace, and there is no peace. They're putting out an illusion. Verse 23. Let their eyes be darkened, that they see not, and make their loins continually to shake. Pour out thine indignation upon them, and let thy wrathful anger take hold of them. Let their habitation be desolate, and let none dwell in their tents. Whew. That's God mad at Israel. That's strong language right there. I think that's what's going on. Israel getting together, making a covenant, and we know they're going to do that in the tribulation. They're going to sit down and sign a contract with the Antichrist. And God's not going to stand for it. That's their undoing. Hosea 2, verse 2. Here's the context of the verse just previous. If you interpret it that God was speaking about in the millennium, then you've got to really do a 360 and put on the skids when you get to verse 2. Plead with your mother. Plead, for she's not my wife, neither am I her husband. Let her therefore put away her whoredoms out of her sight, and her adulteries from between her breasts. Now, the explanation I've given you, I think, jives more with verse 2 than if you were to say this is God looking into the millennium. I don't think he's looking into the millennium in verse 1. I think he's saying people are lying to each other. And they're saying a confederacy and everything's fine and I'm going to call them my people. And well, that's what's going on right now. They're saying that we are Israel. We're the people. No, you're not. You don't want to be. Believe me, you don't want to be. We've got, in fact, I needed to tell you about that. I've got a guy who called me sometime this week. And he's a missionary to the Jews. And I think he's in the United States. And he wanted to come in. I told him, no, I'm not, we're not supporting anybody. I got all we can handle right now. I said, but, more power to you. I'm not against you, but I know this is a job and you're out trying to get money and I ain't got none, so keep moving. I said it nice. And we got to talking, and I think he's going to come in anyway. He said that he didn't care about the money. He just wanted to meet people and get the burden out there, which is good. That's smart. And so it'll be interesting if he shows up. I want to find out how he handles the Jew. To me, this is an interesting thing. The Jew is a particular thing that God has cast off. Right now they're in time out. We're not Catholics. You know what the Catholics do? They historically, not anymore, they've already done it. But historically what they would do is they would move into a pagan country and find out what the rituals were, find out what the customs were, and say, that's the same thing we do. And put some sort of a Catholic spin on it so that they could continue doing what they were doing and consider themselves Catholic. Well, I've seen a lot of missionaries do this with Jews. You're not a completed Jew. You're a Christian. You're in Jesus Christ, something totally different. You have to forsake Judaism in order to accept Jesus Christ. None of those Jewish ceremonies right now are done biblically anyway. Go back to the Bible. Do any of them have a Passover lamb? No. Then don't do Passover. That's not biblical. Okay, the Bible prescribes exactly how it's to be done. You're supposed to keep the lamb up for 14 days. You have to slit his throat. 2 families can eat on one. Doesn't say anything about 3. And all of it's got to be eaten. I mean, it's very prescribed.
Or burnt.
Burnt, that's right. What's not eaten.
Burnt outside the city.
So to go back to the Old Testament, you need to go back to the Old Testament. So a Jew that's doing these traditions is just a Catholic with a different name. And so I avoid the whole Jewish thing by saying you got to forsake Judaism. So I don't know how this guy will handle Jews, but we'll see. We'll pepper him with some questions and find out. Anyway, I don't know why I got off on all that. Hosea 2 verse 2, he says, plead with your mother, plead, for she's not my wife. That means something has happened. I'm no longer considering this a marriage relationship. Now, there's been no letter of divorcement given yet. It's coming. He says, neither am I her husband. Why? Because obviously there's whoredom going on. Okay, the woman who plays the harlot, look down at verse 5. For their mother hath played the harlot. She hath conceived them and hath done shamefully. She's got children by whoredom. That's Israel. Now he's going to... This is all done as a picture of what the nation has been doing to God. But both sides are true. A woman can do this, can step out of the marriage relationship and go commit whoredom and have a child out of wedlock. He says, I'm not her husband. We don't have a marriage relationship right now. Even though legally they're still bound. Now this is where I take an exception to what some people say. I don't say they're divorced right here because there's been no letter of divorcement given. I realize from God's point of view that she has divorced, separated herself from what should have been her bond. However, there's been no letter of divorcement, the legal document, signed yet. That legal document is important. He's going to do a legal document later. Look at it in Jeremiah 3. Jeremiah 3 verse 6. Jeremiah 3:6. The Lord said also unto me in the days of Josiah king, hast thou seen that wicked backsliding Israel? Hast thou seen that which backsliding Israel hath done? She hath gone up upon every high mountain and under every green tree, and there hath played the harlot. Okay, here's God defining for us a little more clearly than what Hosea did, but the same examples. Verse 7. And I said after she had done all these things, turn thou unto me. He didn't just get rid of her because she did something wrong. Remember, that was the law. Moses' law was this. If you bring a bride home and she's you find something that you don't like in her, I mean, that's pretty loose right there. She couldn't cook eggs right. She boiled the water too long. Now, of course, it shouldn't have been like that, but that's the way they were going. Then you just turn her out and give her a bill of divorcement. God didn't do that. He said, Israel's been doing some wrong things. And I tried to plead with her. I said, turn back to me. That's not the right way. You won't find any happiness over there. Come back home. But she returned not, and her treacherous sister Judah saw it. And I saw when for the causes whereby backsliding Israel committed adultery, I put her away. First step. And given her a bill of divorcement. Two things happen here. He puts her away, then writes a bill of divorcement. It's a separation. We can't get it patched up. Okay, let's go see the lawyer. That's the way it's stated here. Yet her treacherous sister Judah feared not, but went and played the harlot also. Both of them going to go through the same issue. Look at verse 8. And when I saw, when for all the causes whereby backsliding Israel committed adultery, I'd put her away, and given her a bill of divorcement, two-step program. Yet her treacherous sister Judah feared not, but went and played the harlot also. Now, if ever somebody should have learned from history, it would have been here. The Assyrians came in and wiped out the north. Why would the south have not picked up on a clue here or there? I mean, they had the prophets coming to them, telling them this is why, and this is what's going on. I wonder what it would have been like had the South remained true to God and held out. He'd have probably started Abraham, started over with just 2 tribes in the South, and done what he wanted to do. But they fell in line with the heathens. Matthew chapter 19. Matthew 19, verse 8. There is legitimate reasons for divorce. The Bible does not condemn divorce. It only condones it for certain reasons. But it does not say you cannot have a divorce. Otherwise, you've got a problem with God. Because God divorced Israel. And so he gives reasons it can be done. Matthew 19, verse 8. He saith unto them, Moses, because of the hardness of your heart, suffered you to put away your wives. Separation. But from the beginning it was not so. And I say unto you, whosoever shall put away his wife, except it be for fornication, and shall marry another, committeth adultery. And whoso marrieth her which is put away doth commit adultery. He said, unless there was some fornication going on, then you really are still married. As far as God's concerned, that was the cause for a broken contract. But if you've not done that step, the contract wasn't broke. So you have no reason for a divorce. And you just complicate matters even worse. So that means when you go to marry somebody, if they're divorced, you got to do some investigation. You can't just marry them because they're divorced. Was it legitimate? Was God in it at all? Is he in it now? I mean, there's a whole list. I can't go through that whole lesson. Mark chapter 10. Mark 10, verse 3. And he answered and said to them, what did Moses command you? Oh, they're asking the same question about this divorce thing. Obviously, somebody in the crowd's got a wife that they're wanting to get rid of. They always ask questions with an ulterior motive. And so Jesus puts it right back on them. Well, you know the law. Tell me, what did Moses say? Verse 4. And they said, Moses suffered us to write a bill of divorcement and to put her away. He said, Moses said we can do this. Here's how it's supposed to happen. 2 steps. Separation and the bill of divorcement. Here, the hypocrites got the program backwards. We're going to write a bill of divorcement and separate. No, it's the other way around. You separate first, then you write a bill of divorcement. Find it in 1 Corinthians 7. 1 Corinthians 7, verse 5. First Corinthians 7, 5. Defraud ye not one another, except it be with consent for a time, that you may give yourselves to fasting and prayer, and come together again, that Satan tempt you not for your incontinency. So here he's saying, if you're going to separate, it needs to be a separation for a purpose, and it needs to be for a set time. Okay, for the next year, we're going to figure out how to make this thing work, or we're going to go through the bill of divorcement step. So there's a separation, then you can proceed to the next step of divorce, or, according to 1 Corinthians 7, you could get back together. And that'd be the goal. Hosea 2 verse 3. Oh, we've already been an hour? Okay. Let me find out. Yeah, I don't want to start something that we're on page 53 of 64. We won't finish all that. All right, we'll pick it up there next week. Hosea 2 verse 3. And he gets real mad at her here in verse 3, and then maybe next week we'll be able to get through the hard stuff and get on to some more good stuff. Then we won't end on a bad note. All right, so that'll do it for Hosea tonight, and we'll pick up in verse 3.